the quarterbacks hold all the power in this league. If the quarterbacks got together and said, we're not playing until we get X, Y, and Z, the NFL Players Association would get anything that they were asking for. The Jawan James injury over the weekend is pointing once again to the fact that the NFL, the most popular sport, their Players Association is the weakest. Their union is the weakest. And Jawan James, at the request of the Players Association, did not work out at the Denver Broncos team facility.
Stopped working out.
Stopped. He was there and left. Worked out on his own. Suffered an Achilles injury and was done for the year. The Broncos waived him. They cut him from the roster
for a while and then waived.
Non-football injury, and then cut him over the weekend where he would have made $10 million in 2021. That's no longer there, to the point where he tweets out to his own union and the NFLPA, if you're going to advise us, we need you to have our backs on the other end of this. Meaning there needs to be some structure, some pool of money, some insurance policy for the players that they don't have to do on their own. Many players have personal insurance policies for the off season. When you see these guys working out in Florida or working out at a high school area, they have insurance policies on their, on their well-being in the off season, where if they get hurt and something like this happens, they're protected. Jawan James may have that, but not to the full extent of what his contract dictated and what the Broncos just cut him for. Paul, this is an example where the union should step up and cover players if they're going to give them advice of not showing up and working out under a team's advisement. So where if they do get hurt while working out, they're covered through their contract.
Or at the very least, they've got to advise these guys before any of this, like as a matter of policy, get an insurance policy. Because the league is going to try to screw you if you get hurt off property. Or when we're making this big push for you to work off property, you probably ought to get an insurance policy. Because here's Jawan James saying, hey, NFLPA, if you're going to advise us, we need you to have our backs on the other end of this. And they don't have his
And the tweet below, when they're referring to Hamilton, James Hamilton, Deshaun Hamilton, I believe, tore his ACL while working out outside of the team facility as well. So another example.
It's just a sucky thing all around. But it is ridiculous. I can't imagine anybody would disagree. The idea that he is, and I don't think there's any reason to not believe that he is training for football, and he gets hurt training for football, and he's out $10 million and he's out of work. I think this is a huge failure by the NFLPA. They just negotiated this new contract, this new CBA a couple years ago, and they failed to address this. Now J.C. Tretter's out front, so they failed to address a couple things. They failed to address what they want in the offseason because they didn't know what they wanted in the offseason until they discovered it based off COVID.
Right.
And so now they want different things. Well, you just negotiated a 10-year deal. I think it opts out after 7, maybe.
They can, yes, that's correct.
Right. So you just negotiated a new deal, and you're already 2 years into it. You want something different. Well, that's not how it works. So, you're kind of changing course here 2 years into 7 years or maybe 10 years. That's weak by you. And you have to give something back if you want to renegotiate that with the league. And you haven't even formally said we want to renegotiate that with the league. You're just publicly campaigning to change the deal that you agreed to. And then you're asking your players to sit out something voluntary, granted, but you're not giving them a recourse for the worst case scenario that happens to Jawan James.
Well, Tretter's in a tough spot because I think he's very smart and bright, and I think he's said a lot of good things throughout this process
he's
about
done a
the
lot
offseason.
Of good, but he's failing here.
A lot of great stats and numbers of off-season training. The lack of preseason led to nearly 50 less concussions last year, and that speaks to the NFL.
He's also
where they don't have to change a rule or change a pad or a helmet. That's just less injury.
It's also comparing it to other sports.
Sure.
You know, but that's where you could have done it with the CBA.
But see, here's where the difference is for him, and Kevin Mawae faced the same thing. The quarterbacks hold all the power in this league. If the quarterbacks got together and said, we're not playing until we get X, Y, and Z, the NFL Players Association would get anything that they were asking for. But the quarterbacks don't do that because they're the ones making all the money. They're making the guaranteed cash. And the veterans who hold all the power are showing up.
They want this work.
They're not going to hold out. Tom Brady's going to work out the park down in Tampa if he's locked out of his team facility.
Well, he's saying don't go. He's saying don't go to these workouts. But in the meantime, he's holding his own workout and he's taking his chances with the injury thing.
Right.
And he's got his insurance policy, you can be sure.
The quarterbacks hold the power in this if they really wanted to get their way within the structure of the union and the way things are set up. They could do that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified every time Outkick 360 goes live. We are live weekdays, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern, right here across the Outkick network. And while you're at it, like this video and let us know what you think in the comments below.